Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us by the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the main watch today, local government elections, why vote, and what to consider. And in the second watch, building it right. And by building, we mean the literal building. For our social media question, we ask, will you be voting in the local government elections? Why? Share your responses in our Facebook or YouTube Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes too. 876-9973-125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share our comments later on the program, but first, here's our quote.
Good morning. So today's I quote, hold on. Okay, so it says, once you bring life into the world, you must protect it. We must protect it by changing the world. And this is by Ellie Weasel.
Changing the world.
Mm-hmm.
Changing the world for, changing the world about, changing the world for God, for Christ.
I leave it at that one.
Not sure what the writer had in mind, but you know what? Once you bring life into the world, you must protect it.
That's right.
The main watch. We'll be back after this break.
Get ready for another inspiring show this Testimony Tuesday Inside Alive 1 to 5 January 30th, packed with inspirational stories and island-flavored music. 1:45 we bring you the brain testing meant to size. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock as we bring in the prayer bells of heaven. Till within inside the evidence, we continue to hear the story of Monique Trout, who finds strength after discovering the power of God. Then at 3 p.m. we go behind the pulpit with the anointed man of God, Pastor Smith. Part 2. All this and more will come live 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. January 30 with me, Sarah, and the Trophy One on the family station, Love 101. We have good energy and immunity thanks to Beacon. Give your family Beacon every day. It's fortified with zinc, vitamin B complex, and minerals, which increases immunity and keeps you revitalized. Beacon, the caretaker of the caregiver. From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&M Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jmbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&M Bank will help you find a way.
You don't want to miss the next episode of Campus Connection. As we focus on youth leadership, we'll be exploring this practice of young people exercising authority over themselves and others. Also, the benefits and values of youth leadership and balancing academics with various assigned tasks. You're invited to join the conversation with Mr. Micton Ibans, Senior Teacher of the Black River High School, Miss Abigail Watt, Head Girl of the Black River High School, and Miss Kimberly Sims, National President of Jamaica Prefects Association, and of course our honorable guest, Mrs. Eileen Kohal-Burley, MOEY Lasco JTC Tibet Teacher of the Year. This all happens on Tuesday, January 30 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Local government elections were postponed before. There is a deadline, however, of February 26th. Will that deadline be kept? We don't know, but in the meanwhile, or in the interim, all parties and independents are apparently in full election mode. So whenever it is to be held, we will see. We have as our guests online today to have a discussion about this, Director of Elections, Electoral Office of Jamaica, Mr. Glasspool Brown. We also have social and political commentator, Dr. Nadine Spence. Dr. Spence, Mr. Brown, good morning to you both.
Good morning to you, Mr. Carmichael. Good morning, Mr. Brown, and good morning to your listeners.
With you, sir. Well, by the way, Dr. Spence, I'm hoping we're hearing you clearly.
Are you? I'm not sure. Are you hearing me better?
Let us see if we can improve the situation with your volume. Well, in any event, let us continue for the time being. How prepared is the Electoral Office of Jamaica, Mr. Brown?
We have started our preparation a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, and we are where we want to be at this stage in terms of our preparation. Certainly, there are a number of activities that will kick in at the point of nomination, like the printing of ballots, etc. So, those that require our preparation prior to, we are satisfied with where we are.
Okay. And, it must be a challenge sometimes preparing for elections when you don't know the date. But can you just assist us by enlightening the listeners? How do you remain always ready?
Part of the as related to the actual election, it is a prerogative of the Prime Minister to call an election at any time. Therefore, we have to be proactive in terms of our preparation. Certainly for this election that is coming up, we are aware of the date in the sense that it was postponed to be held on or before February 28th. So therefore, from then we started some preliminary preparation, and we therefore have put a number of things in place in preparation that an announcement will be made, and therefore guided by that extension or postponement to the current date, we started the process. One challenge that we face in preparing for election is that you have to prepare for with the anticipation that the turnout will be 100%. Sad to say though, the trend is that the turnout is normally very low, certainly to have a local government election. I think the last election of 2016, the turnout was 30.6%. Therefore, having prepared for a possible turnout for 100%, you have spent a significant amount of taxpayers' funds to prepare for these elections, and then the turnout is not where we want it to be. And that creates a little challenge for us and a concern for us at the Commission and the Electoral Office of Jamaica.
Excellent time to bring in Dr. Spence. Dr. Spence.
Yes. Hope you're hearing me better.
And the whole idea of persons sometimes not being that interested in local government elections. Dr. Spence?
Yeah, I think one of the things we are discovering globally is that people are not as gung-ho about elections as they were some years ago, perhaps in the 80s and 70s. People are not as excited, perhaps because elections were new or mass participations in election are no longer a new phenomena for most of the countries in the world. That's one. I think the other thing is we have not devised through our political parties a very useful way to convince new citizens by age, that they should participate in the process. I think there's an assumption that people will just automatically vote. And we're discovering more and more that this generation needs to be convinced. I work at the university, and one of the things we have to do as it relates to programming and convincing students to choose an area of study, is we have to tell them the value of it, and we have to tell this generation, the generation Z, and even millennials, the one before, we have to tell them what they are going to get out of it. And to be honest, sometimes we have to put in mechanisms to give them material things for them to come, whether it's a t-shirt, or we have to make sure we're serving food, or we have to give them a speaker that's exciting enough for them to feel as if they will be entertained. So this generation, that is the generation that is coming into adulthood and that needs to vote, is not a generation that is convinced that it's absolutely necessary for them to participate, because we haven't done the work, whether through the school system. I never added that before, but that's also a part of it, through the school system or through the political parties or the other agents of society. In fact, the other agents of socialization, convince them that it's not worth it. The church doesn't sound very convincing about it. The family doesn't sound very convincing about it. The peer group doesn't sound very convincing about it. The school is silent on it, and the political parties are very discriminating with who they invite and who they speak to. So I think we have not done enough to get people to stay interested or to become interested.
Very interesting that you said that, Dr. Spence. And fixed election dates, I'm not sure if you want to, well, do you want to say anything about that?
I'm not, for me, there are mechanisms that get election to happen, and we have different political systems, and we operate within a political system and a political tradition which says we don't have fixed election dates. There is another one that says you have fixed election date, or one doesn't. But I don't think the participation in one is higher than the other. It's not about the fixed election dates. It's about people feeling as if they are not getting what they want out of politics and how governments operate. And I don't think if we change the election date, it will mean anything. The novelty of it might make people excited for the first election. But, if you look at all South Africa, I can remember in my lifetime when South Africa gained the vote and how people stood up in line for hours to vote because they just gotten the vote. They were voting for Nelson Mandela. They were voting for an ideal and an idea that they connected to, and they saw the imperatives of. If you look at the polls in South Africa now, even that is falling off, and they have a more recent history with elections, So we have to recognize it's not necessarily a one thing that's going to change it. Fixed election dates have not made it. Countries with fixed election dates you don't see mass amount of people turning up at the polls either.
Totally understand, Dr. Spence, but it might make Mr. Brown's job a little tad bit easier. Mr. Brown, you're coming in.
Yeah, I'm here now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And we're almost upon a break already. But Mr. Brown, fixed election dates, would that make your job easier?
Certainly, purpose, it would be better for us because able to plan better.
Understood, but
it also has its negative too. In terms of fixed election dates,
such a what negatives? What negatives? Tell us what negatives.
Campaigning is started way before because people know before, and that could be a positive, that could be a negative. But for us, though, it will allow us a better planning.
Okay, interesting. We are already upon a break, ladies and gentlemen. All persons listening, the Morning Watch. We'll be back after this break.
For the gas station and the attendant come up
87 and 90.
I don't know why him think I would do 87 in my new car, but me inside. But when he say
Cash or card?
me say, big man, why would I take my cash and buy gas? I pay for everything with my Surgical Bank credit card, grocery, gas, bills. Cause when you use your card, you get your reward. If I pay cash, you are gonna give me a reward.
We can wipe your windscreen.
Earn the best rewards ever with Surgical Bank credit cards. Conditions apply.
Well, if you want buy appliances for your home with the quality high and the price low, get it on a Bashco. Get it on a Bashco.
Sign up online for your free Bashco loyalty card. at www.bashgojm.com. It's easy and it's free. Shop and earn 3% cashback on every purchase. www.bashgojm.com.
Bashco, the store that gives you more. Bashco.
Get ready for another inspiring show this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive 1 to 5 January 30, packed with inspirational stories and island flavored music. 1:45 we bring you the brain testing mental size. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock as we ring in the prayer bells of heaven. To within inside the evidence, we continue to hear the story of Monique Trout, who finds strength after discovering the power of God. Then at 3 p.m. we go behind the pulpit with the anointed man of God, Pastor Smith. Part 2. All this and more will come alive 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. January 30 with me, Sarah, and the Trophy One on the family station, Love 101.
You don't want to miss the next episode of Campus Connection. As we focus on youth leadership, we'll be exploring this practice of young people exercising authority over themselves and others. Also, the benefits and values of youth leadership and balancing academics with various assigned tasks. You're invited to join the conversation with Mr. Micton Ibanks, Senior Teacher of the Black River High School, Miss Abigail Watt, Head Girl of the Black River High School, and Miss Kimberly Sims, National President of Jamaica Prefects Association, and of course our honorable guest, Mrs. Eileen Kohal-Bailey, MOEY Lasco JTC Tibet Teacher of the Year. This all happens on Tuesday, January 30 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch. The topic is local government elections. Why vote and what to consider? Our guests are Glasspool Brown, Director of Elections, Electoral Office of Jamaica, and Dr. Nadine Spence, social and political commentator. You know, the question arises as to what normally keeps people away from the local government polls. Dr. Spence, before the break, you were beginning to, or did in fact outline some reasons, but what can be done to fix that or to correct that? Or is it that there is something deeper to look at? Is it that people are just apathetic because they're not seeing any material change to them, regardless of who their counselors are? I don't know. I mean, Dr. Spence.
I mean, that could be one, that could be one reason. I think some people feel. Oh, I'm here. Are you not hearing me?
Oh, I'm hearing you now. Of course, I'm hearing you now.
Because, yes, some people don't feel invested because they can't see the material benefit. And there's a whole, in academia, there's a whole group of people who studied that, talked about why people are so materially motivated and noting that there are some people in the world who are post that stage of motivation, the post-materialist, and so it's not the material gain that motivates them, but higher things like love for the environment and wanting people to put people into power who have good policies around the environment, good policies around different aspects of life. But I think when you look at it, people are looking at people with good policies because they can now see the value of government policies and actions and decisions on their individual lives. That's one. So there are people who are motivated by the immediate gain. And in Jamaica, we used to talk a lot about the politics of scarce benefit and spoils, where people didn't even vote for the outcome after the election. People voted because they were going to get something prior to the election. So we know that we have a history with some of those issues in Jamaica. But as I said, especially the local government elections, we've conveyed to people that it's just a litmus test. It's like a poll for the general elections.
Yes.
We haven't explained our system of governance to our citizens. So people don't see the value of the councillor. The councillors are assistants to the MPs. People don't see this difference between local government and central government. We wrap them into one without, going into the specificities that explain to citizens why it's important to stay invested in their local government and what the community, the individual, what the benefits are, what the value of it is. And we're reaping the benefits of that. And we continue to treat local government as if it's a poll or a litmus test for general elections. And until we've figured out a way to communicate differently about the value of local government, people will see it as, I can't bother. If I'm going to vote in one of them, let it be the general elections because the local government no matter. When in fact, people should be more connected to local government. People should it's where the people should be most heard, and where people should feel most invested in ensuring that their voice is at the table.
Interesting, Dr. Spence. Very interesting. Mr. Brown, when someone does not vote, I know you're director of elections and certain things are outside of your remit, but when someone does not vote, what message do you think that sends?
I just want to express to concur with what Dr. Spence said earlier. The fact that, and if historically, if you put some history to the thing, a lot of sacrifice went into people having that right at getting that right to so express their opinion or position by casting a ballot. The message that it sends is that it's clearly people, and this is my personal comment, in the sense that persons are basically dictating the quality of representation that you do get at the end of the day. Because by abstaining and not being a part of the process, you basically, in an indirect way, determine the quality of representation, which can impact in terms of the governance, so not a local government level and even at the parliamentary level. And so it sends a wrong message in terms of people not understanding the importance of this right that you have to be a part of the process.
I think there might be among some persons this view that, and it could have something to do with, even salary structure, I don't know, but there might be a view that the councillor might be, they just go to meetings and, the air grosses and they're involved in fixing of roads and so on, and that the level of, preparedness that they may need to sit in the chair of a councillor is not that relevant or important, or you don't need to be that lettered, if at all. Dr. Spence, any comments on that? Do you think that in some way, shape, or form, there is some sort of a perception that there isn't much prestige attached to being a councillor, and that the prestige is really retained for the members of parliament and the senators, and as such, in a subtle sort of a way, it's making people not take the local government elections as seriously when they really should? Dr. Spence?
I think we've heard over the last year or two about how people feel about some of the people who serve in local government. People are looking at the quality of the candidates, how they speak, how they articulate points and perspectives, wondering, are these people up to par? Is this how we should be represented? I think Jamaicans are having that discussions of the MPs and candidates and the senators, they're having that as well. But for the councillors especially, people are also having that because, I think Jamaicans are becoming, even in the midst of the cynicism, people are perhaps because of the cynicism, people are becoming much more critical. And the critical is not just leveling criticism. People are exercising some critical thought and thinking, who do I want to represent me and what qualities should that person have, and should that people be able to articulate a position sufficiently that impresses me. So I think you're right, but not just because of the prestige, but because I think over time, because of the perception that local government was not as important as central government. They don't have enough money. You know, it's if central government gets an A, local government might get a C. You know, there is a level of prestige, but I think that that prestige is tied up with other things that over time people have not just said, okay, it's not as important, but people are now doing a little bit of, well, a whole lot of discerning and thinking it through. And there are some people who are choosing not to participate because they're like, I'm not voting for that person. I heard that person speak and I wasn't impressed. And I'm not participating in it because it doesn't seem to cater to people of my class or my educational background. It seemed to focus on another kind of people. And so, you know, the diehards, the people who support the parties to the core, you know, so I agree with you. There's a level of quote unquote prestige that people are attaching to it because the hierarchy between local government and central government has
Yeah.
put local government way down at the bottom and central government way up top.
Well, ways and means need to be found to address that issue because local government is, in fact, very important, as you have rightly indicated, Dr. Spence. Any comments on how independent candidates may fare, though, and maybe even from an organizational, standpoint, in terms of the EOJ, Mr. Brown, you might want to weigh in as well in terms of how independent candidates vis-a-vis candidates from the recognized and registered political parties, how that is dealt with. But Dr. Spence, any comments in terms of how independent candidates may fare in a local government election?
You see, if Jamaica was a country where people voted on issues versus parties, then you know, people, you might have an independent candidate who's coming pushing a particular line, you know.
Yes.
The cities are not clean and we need to have better environmental policies. So that person would be representing issues related to the environment. Or there might be somebody who is saying, Portmore needs to become its own town, just for argument's sake. Or somebody who is saying, we need Black River to be elevated to the status of a city, or Montego Bay, even though it has the status of a city, it doesn't get the prestige it needs. You know, people who have those single issues who are pushing an agenda, and it also would mean that we have enough people who would vote so that, and it wouldn't work in this system either. It would work better in a proportional representation system. So if there are so many things, there are a whole lot of things that would cause an independent candidate to be a successful candidate in our two-party bicameral legislature with two dominant political parties. It's not just an independent candidate, it's also the minor parties that get left behind. But it's a system of democracy we practice.
Very true, Dr. Spence. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Brown, any comments? Independent candidates versus candidates from the registered political parties. Any comments? If you wish to comment, sir.
I wouldn't necessarily comment on how they will feel though out in the election. But what I would say though, that certainly from ECJ, EOJ's end, we treat every person as candidates, not necessarily as a traditional party or independent, but everybody as candidate, and therefore all the facilities and the opportunity will be given to all candidates, no matter whether you are independent or a representative of our political party. So we provide you with the same level of facility in terms of ensuring that you have been a part of the process. So we give no advantage to any political party as against the independent candidate. As I said earlier on, the way to treat everybody as a candidate.
I have to leave it there.
Earlier on in terms of...
I think we're completely out of time, Mr. Brown and Dr. Spence. But an excellent way to end, sir. Everyone is treated equally and fairly, Mr. Brown. I want to thank you, Mr. Brown and Dr. Spence, for being guests with us in the Morning Watch this morning. Never enough time in the Morning Watch. Listeners, don't go anywhere at all. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Anything possible with a little savings in your hand.
The time by Jam Bank is
7:31 a.m.
We're full of life. You're full of love. They're carefree. You care more. That's why we created Child Protector, a critical illness insurance plan from Sagicor Life. It provides coverage for your child in the event of 15 critical illnesses, hospitalization benefits, life insurance, and investment benefits. So make sure your child can live life to the fullest. Apply for Sagicor Child Protector today.
Get ready for another inspiring show this Testimony Tuesday Inside Alive 1 to 5 January 30, packed with inspirational stories and island-flavored music. 1:45, we bring you the very interesting mental size. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock as we bring in the prayer bells of heaven. Till within inside the evidence, we continue to hear the story of Monique Trout, who finds strength after discovering the power of God. Then at 3 p.m., we go behind the pulpit with the anointed man of God, Pastor Smith. Part 2. All this and more will come alive 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. January 30 with me, Sarah, and the Trophy One on the family station, Love 101.
You don't want to miss the next episode of Campus Connection. As we focus on youth leadership, we'll be exploring this practice of young people exercising authority over themselves and others. Also, the benefits and values of youth leadership and balancing academics with various assigned tasks. You're invited to join the conversation with Mr. Micton Ibanks, Senior Teacher of the Black River High School, Miss Abigail Watt, Head Girl of the Black River High School, and Miss Kimberly Sims, National President of Jamaica Prefects Association, and of course our honorable guest, Mrs. Eileen Kohal Burley, MOEY Lasco JTC Tibet Teacher of the Year. This all happens on Tuesday, January 30 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And by newspapers, we mean and other news sources. Online, we have in Loop Jamaica News, starting with that online. Burglars hit Jamaica Archives offices. Burglars hit Jamaica Archives offices. We turn now to the Gleaner. We have CPFSA providing support for 14-year-old seen in video being beaten by security guard. We turn now to the Jamaica Observer. PAJ which stands for Press Association of Jamaica, calls for repeal of gun court provisions amid media exclusion in Silvera murder trial. We have different views on whether or not a judge should be allowed to exclude, the media in certain cases, and definitely more anon on that. We have heard the DPP weigh in as well, giving her own perspective. Definitely more anon on that. Those and many other stories in our various news sources. Coming up next, we'll read through some of the feedback from our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp question, which is, will you be voting in the local government elections? Why? If you haven't done so yet, leave your responses in our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes too. 876-997-3125 using hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
Get ready for another inspiring show this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive 1 to 5 January 30th, packed with inspirational stories and island-flavored music. 1:45 we bring you the ring jesting meant to size. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock as we bring in the prayer bells of heaven. To within inside the evidence, we continue to hear the story of Monique Trout, who finds strength after discovering the power of God. Then at 3 p.m. we go behind the pulpit with the anointed man of God, Pastor Smith. Part 2. All this and more will come alive 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. January 30 with me, Sarah, and the Trophy One on the family station, Love 101.
You don't want to miss the next episode of Campus Connection. As we focus on youth leadership, we'll be exploring this practice of young people exercising authority over themselves and others. Also, the benefits and values of youth leadership and balancing academics with various assigned tasks. You're invited to join the conversation with Mr. Micton Ibans, senior teacher of the Black River High School, Miss Abigail Watt, head girl of the Black River High School, and Miss Kimberly Sims, national president of Jamaica Prefects Association, and of course our honorable guest, Mrs. Eileen Kohal Bailey, MOEY Lasco JTC Tibet Teacher of the Year. This all happens on Tuesday, January 30 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101.
I am a man, yes.
On the next episode of The Mailbox, we will be presenting the Men's Fellowship Tour. This will be your first stop in a series of male fellowship link-ups. What are the activities taking place among men in the church? Are there solutions to attract and retain more males in the church community? You are invited to join us as we spend time with Reverend David Grant, lead pastor at the Jamaica Evangelistic Center, and Mr. Akeem Johnson, secretary of the Dynamic Men in Action, on Wednesday, January 31 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101. The Mailbox, Monday.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall Chukal. Do we as yet have any comments in relation to our feedback question? Will you be voting in the local government elections and why?
Yes, we do have some responses on our WhatsApp line. Monica says, seriously contemplating voting. I started my work life at a parish council office. It was like a university for me. Truth is, local government lost voters' interest when it was stripped of its power and everything became centralized in the 80s. This next person says, no, I will not be voting in the local government election. Unfortunately, I have never felt the motivation to vote. I do hope to vote one day, but I will support whoever is selected and hope that they execute their duties well. Sister Ennis says, no, I will not. I'm a millennial and I have never voted. Why? I've yet to see a candidate worthy of my vote. Crabbing up barrel. And then Edna from Montego Bay sent a voice note. Let's hear what she has to say.
Good morning, Morning Watch. Good morning, Love 101 listeners and staff. Well, I am between two opinions at the moment whether to vote or not to. But if I do decide to vote, it will because as a citizen of this country, I am entitled to exercise my right, and that is one of the avenues of doing so.
And that's the end of Edna's voice note. So that's the end of our responses.
Thank you. Thank you for all of those interesting comments. I think two persons said they're not voting.
Mm-hmm, right.
One said they're going to vote. And the voice note, Edna, of course, always calling in, always contributing, indicated she's sort of she's indicating that she's in two minds? Sort of ish?
Yeah.
Kind of ish?
Yeah, she said she wants to vote because she believes that it's a right.
Okay, well. Mm-hmm. Let us move right into the second watch. And it's all about building. We mean literal buildings, real estate developments. Real estate developments are going up all over in Jamaica, and it's not unusual to hear stories about breaches. But how did we get here and why did we get here? We have as our guest this morning to discuss this very important topic, I would even say earth-moving topic. Lenworth Kelly, immediate past president of the Master Builders Association of Jamaica. My apologies. And Dayton Wood. Mr. Wood is the chairman of the Jamaica Developers Association. Mr. Wood.
Good morning. Morning.
Good morning. Morning to you both. Morning. Yes, I think we will have you both on. Starting with you, Mr. Kelly, as an immediate past president of your association, sir. How would you say the real estate industry is doing concerning adherence to regulations? And what are the roles of bodies such as the one that you were just recently president of, the real estate board, and the various government bodies? I know it's a two-pronged question. So how has the industry been doing in terms of adhering to regulations, and what are the roles of the various bodies? Mr. Kelly.
Well, morning again to Stant, and morning Dayton, morning to your listeners. It's
Thank you.
Just from our perspective at the IMAG, you really learn of violations largely through the media. There's nothing that comes out of parish councils or the other agencies to say, oh, we have discovered these violations. We don't know, maybe Dayton can speak more to that, but that may be more eye-opening than we imagine. So we hear of the high-profile incidences and so on. So to say, given the level of development that we know, we are aware of, and what's reported in the media, you can't assume that it's widespread, because if it's not official, then we're making assumptions. So it would be good to have the municipal corporations and the NEPAs and so on speak to if there are what's the level of violations they are seeing when they do their inspections. All right. What was the other side of the question, Toussaint?
The roles of the various bodies, your association, the real estate board, and the various government bodies. You mentioned NEPA, for example.
Right. So they are regulatory approving agencies. The real estate board is somewhat a regulator. I can't say, Dayton can speak more with more clarity to it, but is all the developments we are seeing, if they are registered with the real estate board, we don't know. But the agencies, their what you would call it, their stewardship has been called into question fairly often, and we don't know if there's also things that the public is not seeing and that we are not seeing. In terms of the industry stakeholders now, largely led by the Developers Association, where real estate development is concerned, and the Association of Realtors, the IMAJ does have real developers within its organization.
When you say IMAJ, you're referring to your organization, the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica?
Right. And as far as we are aware, the members of both organizations have toed the line where developments are concerned. We're obeying the rules.
Stick up in a second there, 1 second, Mr. Kelly. I want to bring in Mr. Wood before the break. Mr. Wood, any comments before we head to the break in a couple seconds?
Well, just to say that I agree with Lenny that a lot of the perspective is that there are more breaches and problems than there are good developments, and I don't think that's necessarily true. And I think that we need to look at how developments are approved and the processes that get you to an approval, and then the management of the development itself, inspections of the along the way. The developers feel that we have Jamaica Institute of Architects, Jamaica Institute of Engineers.
Mr. Wood,
and that,
Mr.
Yes.
Wood, you're beginning to develop on a point there, and I think we probably need to wait until after the break because we're upon a break.
Okay.
Listeners, please stay with us because very important discussion here this morning. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Love how NCB self-serve digital channels help me bank online, anywhere and anytime. I use the NCB mobile app to pay my bills, check balances, and more. And I manage my cards with ease at managemycard.jncb.com. No calls needed for my request or complaints thanks to NCB Assist. And if I have questions, I link with Simone the chatbot. Plus for branch visits, I always save time by scheduling an appointment in advance online.
Welcome to Banking Made Personal. Learn more at jncb.com/so-you-can.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
After 6 days of creating and creating and creating, who wouldn't need some rest? Most of us would have probably buzzed halfway through the first thing created. Well, maybe God didn't need rest, but yet He did. What deep meaning did God want us to learn? Tuesday, January 30 on The Rock, join guests Angela and Homer Slack as they discuss the topic, the creation story. Then He rested. That's The Rock, Tuesday, January 30 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, having a very important conversation with Dayton Wood. Mr. Wood is the chairman of the Jamaica Developers Association, and Mr. Lenworth Kelly. He's the immediate past president of the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica. The topic is building it right. Building meaning literal buildings. Mr. Wood, just before the break, you're beginning to develop your points, and I don't want you to lose your train of thought, sir. Please continue. And just to remind, the question, the general question there was in relation to how has the real estate industry been doing concerning adherence to regulations, and what are the roles of the bodies such as the Master Builders Association of Jamaica, the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica, the Real Estate Board, and the various government bodies. Continue, Mr. Wood.
Right. Well, what I was getting to is that there are two elements to this. First of all, there is a question, was the development properly approved? That's number one. Number two, whether the development itself, is it managed properly? Is it inspected properly? And those are the two key elements in my mind. The first one, was it approved properly? We as the developers feel that their process takes too long. I mean, 55 years ago, when the Developers Association was formed, the driving force behind it was to get a 90-day turnaround for approval or rejection of your project. That is still the cause, the reason why we exist, partially the reason why we exist. So the elements of approval and the celebrated cases that we have around demonstrate that there needs to be a lot more transparency in how the applications are dealt with. And NEPA has a wonderful association committee there, the Developers Assistance Committee, which developers can go to and get a good understanding of what can be built where, when, and how. And based on that, they can decide whether they wish to purchase land in a particular area. Where the problems seems to me have probably recently is that for a long time we had a provisional development order governing Kingston and St. Andrew in particular. And last year, April, it was made affirmed as a development order. But prior to that, were acting on I think a 1960s development order that was upgraded, and so you had gray areas as to what was allowed, what was not allowed. So you see high-rise buildings going up in residential single family areas, and it seemed to be quite haphazard.
Yes.
Because the order has been made now, I think this will going forward. We won't have so much of that. But citizens in the areas need to be taken into consideration when these developments are taking place. And through the Developers and System Committee, I think this is where the parish council representatives and the citizens in the area need to be brought in to decide whether or not they wish the covenants in the areas to be modified to allow the change of use for the development.
Mr. Wood, there's a general perception, I believe, and I should preface it by saying that I have a real estate salesman's license. So there's a perception, I think, that persons feel that when you go to purchase a unit, whatever that unit is, it might be advertised as whatever number of bedrooms, bathrooms, etc., and features on the complex, if I could call it that, the residential development, but that may not necessarily reflect what was approved. I'm not speaking about any specific case now, I'm speaking generally. And I will also tell you, sirs, both of you gentlemen, that, and the public, although I hold no brief for anyone this morning, I'm speaking only in my own right. I've had situations that where, someone will say, well, this is what we're selling. We're selling a particular, we're selling units in a particular development. And you find yourself having to check. I mean, is it that what's advertised on this brochure, does it match what really is legally permissible at this location? Because the last thing I want to be doing as a salesman is saying, these are all the things that are going to be at the particular residential complex. It may not necessarily have been approved. They might be talking about putting in some sort of central facility there where people can entertain themselves, but it's not necessarily approved. They're trying to get it approved now. So it can leave you in a quandary. So any general comments on this, gentleman? I'm going to start with you again, Mr. Wood, because people are getting the sense that what they are buying into doesn't necessarily match what has been approved. And you mentioned the matter of monitoring, Mr. Wood. Monitoring. Who is monitoring, or who should be monitoring these things as they are being developed? And I'll even add another one before you comment, Mr. Wood. Even in terms of the quality of the construction, is the steel going right up in terms of the concrete right up to the top where the roof would meet the concrete wall, sir? I mean, things like this, because you don't want an earthquake and then you realize that there's a challenge with the construction. Mr. Wood, I know I said a lot, but it's a long question.
Sure. All right. Well, first of all, the real estate board. Each development needs to be registered with the real estate board. And to my understanding, we are quite efficient in monitoring what you advertise, because I know they check the advertisements that come out and match that up with what you have an approval for. And it also, again, they send inspectors out too. And when you come back, you see this is a very convoluted system. The real estate board approves you once you have an approved development from the parish council. And then you are then allowed to go and advertise. And you can only advertise what you have approved. So sometimes, I guess there are cases where this doesn't happen, as you have quite rightly pointed out. So there is a lapse here. But the system to checks and balance for that is in place, on paper at least. The parish council who give the approval are also supposed to be inspecting, as is NEPA. inspecting to make sure that the what is advertised is what is built. Now, as far as the physical construction is concerned, I don't think we've had any situations that I can certainly don't know of where people have been building with poor quality practices, like as you pointed out, not putting the steel in and so on. I think that might
not enough steel.
Sorry?
Or maybe not enough steel. Maybe it doesn't go right up to where the roof meets, for example.
Well,
things like that.
Okay, well, this is where I was coming back to, started off earlier. We have the Jamaica Institute of Engineering. You see, not all major developers, most major developers have use its services as registered engineers, mechanical and electrical and plumbing engineers.
Very interesting.
Quantity surveyors, architects, and so on.
Yes.
And the parish council also charges you a fee to come and inspect at certain stages along construction.
Yeah.
Now, they have a shortage of inspectors.
I was about to ask.
So one of the proposals that we have before the government is that they have a bonding type situation where in engineers and the architects have signed that yes, the proper steel has been done, and at the various stages, pictures are taken and stored for future use, so that you know that structurally the building is sound. And I know Lenny's membership build according to what is on the plan.
Yes.
And follow the engineer. In fact, sometimes the contractors point out mistakes in the plans. So, genuine oversights.
Yes.
But we don't seem to. I don't think we have a problem in Jamaica with poor building. I mean, if anything, we tend to overbuild. But as you pointed out, we have an earthquake threat.
Yes. Mr. Kelly, I'm sorry, Mr. Wood.
We could bond the engineers and the architects to, when they affirm that these are in place, then I think we would ease some of the pressure on the parish council to provide inspectors. And I think the developers themselves would be assured that their product is well built.
Understood. Thank you for that, Mr. Wood. Mr. Kelly, and it comes before a wrap today because we do not want to have more problems. We want to have less problems and we want solutions. Mr. Kelly?
All right, so quickly, and just to support what Dayton has said, so for your developers, there's a whole host of developers that have arrived on the landscape. And so what we recommend is that if you're going to purchase, check everything. Are they registered with the Jamaica Developers Association? Is a development registered with the real estate board? Have you seen the approved plans? You can go and inquire separately just to make sure that, okay, fine, that's there. The purchaser can't do much about the monitoring because that's up to the agency. And as Dayton has pointed out, a lot of the stakeholders and bodies in the sector have said, listen, if we have this real estate boom, there's increase in construction, you don't have enough support. So what you could require as a part of the approvals is to say to the developer, listen, we require from you periodic report from your professionals, and those come into us at the parish councils, the NEPAs.
Mr. Kelly,
to say,
we have to leave it there this morning, Mr. Kelly, but that's probably a great way on which to end, because definitely this topic is not one that's going to just go away that easily. It's a very important one. I want to thank you, Mr. Kelly, and you as well, Mr. Wood. Very important points you've both raised this morning. Thank you for your contributions and for your thoughts. Thank you, gentlemen. Never enough time on the morning watch, but we unfortunately have to wrap it at this time. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. Visit the Love 101 FM Facebook Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page for this and all other Love 101 FM programs. And of course, listen to the Morning Watch on our Love 101 app. Download it today and stay connected to the family station, Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. I am Stokeley Marshall, handing back Love in the Morning with Jacal.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Watch. The time is now 8 a.m. and